Now, another key that I want to talk about is establishing that project charter very early on. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir, so hopefully most of you are using some semblance of a project charter. You may not call it a project charter. It might be a statement of work or MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, but you need some sort of document right at the beginning to clarify the key elements of the project and also to clarify the expectations. And one of the reasons why I say that within the context of accountability is a lot of times people will, throw their hands up in the air, not do what they're supposed to do because they claim they're confused. I just don't know what's going on, or I just couldn't figure that out. We didn't have clear communication. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, when I was supposed to do it. Again, provide that clarity, okay? How many of you, just curious, have used project charters? Yes. Okay, most of the group. So somebody just talk to me. How helpful is that? Helpful, not helpful? Yes? I see people shaking their heads, yes? Okay. Very, very helpful. The whole concept, for those of us who haven't used it, is you want to clarify as much as you can at the beginning of the project. Maybe you won't have, 100% of the information. So this can be a living document. Maybe you started at the kickoff meeting. Maybe you're able to get 75%, and then you continue to fill that out. And you also might change certain things as you need to throughout the life cycle of the project. So clearly we want to know the name, who's the team leader, the members, the sponsors, strategic alignment, how this project supports higher level goals or the overall strategy. Want to understand that. The mission, the objectives of the project, what is in scope and what is out of scope. Now, let me just say, that's something I added. Well, I added when I was working for a major company because we had been burned so many times. But why do you think I'm saying explicitly write out what's out of scope? Why not just write what's in scope, and if it's not on that list, then it's out? Why not do it that way? Eliminates gray areas. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When I was doing a project for a major television network, they were developing a digital archive. And so one of the things that we were doing for them was vendor analysis because we didn't provide the product. So we were going to go out to different vendors and see what products were out there and make some general recommendations to them. But we were not going to write their RFP. I mean, their RFP was probably going to be 200 pages, very detailed, very technical. We were not going to this level of detail. Do you see how it could be confusing if we listed our scope elements and one of them is vendor analysis? Do you see how they could have been sitting there saying, oh, well, they're doing all the vendor stuff. That's wonderful because, that RFP is going to take forever. So I'm so glad they're taking care of that. Okay? So this became kind of our line of demarcation to really clarify what's out, what we're not doing. Another example, when I was getting married a few years ago, I was interviewing wedding planners, because now everybody has a wedding planner. I don't know how they got married before, but I was interviewing wedding planners. So if I'm the bride and I'm interviewing the wedding planner and I'm saying to them, hey, tell me about your services, tell me what you'll do for me, what do you think was a typical response? Everything. Oh my God, you're just a bride. Oh, you're so pretty. You're just going to sit there in your little lily pad. You're not going to do a thing. I'm going to handle it all. Now, do you think they really did do everything? Not even close. So what I found was that was a useless question. Okay? The better question was what? What will you not do? Tell me what's out of scope. And it was so interesting. That same person said they do everything. I said, oh, well, just out of curiosity, what would you consider like out of scope? Like, what would you not do? She had a laundry list. She was like, oh, well, I mean, I'm not going to be, addressing your invitations. I'm not going to be picking people up from the airport. I'm not going to be at the showers. She had a whole long list of stuff she wouldn't do. And that really kind of was helpful to me because it showed me the boundaries of those services. So same things on your project teams. Get really, really clear about where those boundaries are. Success metrics. For most of you, do you explicitly define how you will measure success on your projects? I see head shaking in the back. I see some people like, oh, no, I worked on a project, again, this is when I was with IBM. We're working with a media company, and it was a long project. It was like 1.5 years long. I thought we did a great job, came in on time, on budget. We found out later they had deemed the project a failure. And my director was really hot, and so he called up our project, our counterpart over there, and asked him, well, how in the world could you say that project was a failure? It was amazing what we did. And she said, well, you know what? Our internal metric is we must recoup our capital investment within 18 months, and we didn't get our money back within 18 months, so unfortunately the project is considered a failure. And so then he was livid. He was like, we were there for 1.5 years. He was like, you never mentioned that you had to recoup your money within 18 months. And what do you think she might have said? You never asked, okay? New best practice, okay? Right at the beginning of the project, you turn to that sponsor, that client, and ask one simple question. How will you measure success for this project? Okay? And I promise you, some of them will look at you like a deer in headlights, okay, and not know. But I actually have another talk called The Project Manager's Guide to Dealing with a Difficult Sponsor, because you know we've always got those sponsors that they don't know what they want, but they're still going to hold you responsible for providing it at the end. So even if they don't know then, I put TBD and then come back 2 weeks later and ask them the question again. But you really want to get clear on how success is going to be measured. Team member time commitments. This can be a major contributor to slacking behavior. You want to be sure that people know what they're signing up for. Because most projects I've worked with, I've had more part-time people working on the team than full-time people working on my team. And part-time is a very dangerous term, okay? Because what could part-time mean? How might someone interpret part-time if they said they need you part-time? What could it mean? Half your time? Maybe you could choose. Maybe 20 hours a week, maybe 30, maybe 5. Maybe when I get done with everything else and I'm in a great mood, you know, I'll come over. So you really want to get clear what are the time expectations and clarify that as early as possible. You want to get more clarity around your communication plan, what the expectations are there. Ground rules, we're going to talk about ground rules, but you want to establish them very, very early on. And then what is the last magical item? Signatures. Now, why in the world do I want to do that? You know, I want everybody to like me, so why don't I just kind of talk about it and we just kind of do a fist bump or, you know, just kind of smile at each other? Why do I want to get signatures? That seems, I don't know, archaic. Commitment, accountability. You know, she could be sitting here nodding her head and saying, yeah, that's great. And I said, oh, okay, well, can I get you to sign, you know, right here? She said, oh, well, let me, you know, look it over and get my lawyer to read it. And, you know, whole different level of accountability when they actually sign it. And it's so interesting because as I teach this in some of my project management classes, I've had 2 situations where people had to get up and testify. And they said, Dana, you are so right. Because we actually went through that process and had one person who refused to sign, okay? And that was our problem person, okay? There was a reason, and it wasn't even necessarily them. One of the groups, they were having like some organizational issues, and so they really didn't want to commit on behalf of their organization, but they said that signing made a big difference. So let me hear from you guys. How many of you do get signatures on the charters? And I have teams ask me all the time, people mostly who are non-project managers, they're like, oh, that seems so formal, you know. How do you do that? So let me hear from you guys. Do you think it's necessary or helpful, or do you have problems getting them? Somebody talk to me about that.